I have interesting insight about musical understanding and musical appreciation because in fact, I think a lot about that, and because I realized there is so much good music out there, and there is a gap between the quality of the music and the quantity of the music that there is out there, and the quality and the quantity of the appreciation and understanding of this music. So that's why if I think about theory of the composition or music theory, etc., sometimes I have the feeling that is a kind of useless to teach it if there is not someone at the other side who is properly enjoying and appreciating music and understanding music. And that's very related to the question of the difference between musical styles and musical rules. And normally people are centered in one musical style, not so much because of a kind of aesthetical decision, but more because of just that's the only thing they can understand. And this question of musical understanding, this concept of musical understanding is of course not a simple concept, and there is a lot of theory about that, but I think I got a simple insight that I can communicate to you in this kind of new podcast way here. What I found is that there is an interesting relation between the musical understanding and traditional parameters, musical parameters like melody, harmony, timbre, polyphony, etc. Okay, and that is that on my perception, and that's still maybe a kind of you can consider as a kind of a hypothesis, because there is my effort here is not so much on the argumentation, but on the exposition of this idea, is that most of the people, they if you see, the most elementary musical understanding is always about rhythm, okay, and that's what I say here is not exactly an evaluation or a critic yet, but is an attempt to bring to the table what are the aspects and the factors that influence musical understanding. That's also good if you are a classical composer or if you compose complex music. It's also interesting to know about that. And the rhythm is the thing that everyone get it. And I am speaking here first about simple and elementary rhythm, regular rhythm, like and that's an interesting thing, because if you consider the music that is most sold, is very centered on the element of the rhythm. That's kind of the kind of is the blood of the musical market, so to say. And and there is a good reason for that. Somehow it's very hard to not understand elemental rhythmical patterns and to not be able to be stimulated by some rhythmical gestures. Okay. So this elemental level of rhythm, like rhythmical repetition, and every rhythm that has a relation to dance and to folklorical dance, etc. That's the first thing that we get it. Okay, you can maybe draw an evolutionary argument for that. Okay, and another explanation that I would have for that, why rhythm is so easy to understand, is that it requires no memory. The rhythm focus you always on the present. That's a very interesting thing. And no matter if it's a simple rhythm or a complex rhythm, and I mean a rhythm that is not symmetric, okay, that is not easy to foresee. If you see the avant-garde music now for 50 years ago, it was really an intention, an conscient intention, that the music negate and block any possibility of long perception of time. The music, the musical events, they lose relation to each other, because some composers, they wanted to avoid also this relation, this formal relations on the overall time horizon of the music. Okay. I want to give here an overview. It's not because the matter here could be, I think, a whole course, and I don't want to do a so long video, but I want to divide these thoughts in more videos actually. So I spoke about rhythm. Then you should get it. You should just memorize that there is simple rhythm and complex rhythm. And simple rhythm is really easy to understand. It's the first thing that we understand. And complex rhythm is maybe the first thing that contributes to the negation of this first aspect. Okay, but we will come to that later. So we have the second thing that we can understand and relate to very easy is the melody. And with melody, I mean here also tonal, symmetric, simple melody. Okay, like sometimes a melody that's just a phrase that repeat and have another phrase that is its counterpart. And the center of the best example for this are also in the folk music to find the pop music. Or with pop music, I mean here the music that is not the classical music. Okay, so you can think about jazz, rock, heavy metal, whatever. Actually, with jazz, I would have a footnote. But any music that people can sing and conspire together, yeah, that's what I mean with pop or popular music. Maybe it's a better term for that. What pop is just an abbreviation of popular, yeah. And so you have the melody and you have the simple melody, like a refrain of whatever you have, of Beatles or whatever, and the melody grounded on repetition, and also that requires not a so wide memory and not a wide memorization of events, of musical events, okay. And what I want that you see here is that there is many different musical styles, and each one of them they center themselves in one of these aspects of the relation between musical parameters and musical understanding. So you have musical styles that are more centered in rhythm, and other styles that are more melodic, and of course these parameters they interact with each other inside each musical piece, but there is a kind of hierarchy that determines what is the style about. Okay, so for example, you have the melodic heavy metal and the, I don't know, the not melodic, okay, and many styles they are defined by that. Okay, you have blues with more regular rhythmical patterns, and another ones with maybe more variated patterns that are a kind of crossover and already beyond what you can understand as being blues, for example. And the interesting thing is that oftentimes all the styles that are not clearly centered on these first levels of a simple treatment of the parameters, they are more likely to be less understood also. What doesn't mean that they are also bad. So what you have actually is that most of the styles, the popular styles, musical styles, they are centered on rhythm and melody, and simple rhythm and simple melody, and that doesn't mean that harmony or polyphony or timbre or completely ignored. But the thing is that these two, they are the structure to what people relate to. Okay, that's why they have concept of rhythm and melody and not concept of harmony. But the interesting thing now about harmony, that is the third thing, is that of course harmony is always implicit on the melody. Okay, the chords, they are not, they are the verticalization of the musical line. That's one way to see that. And also the if you see music that is a little more rich, okay, this music has now an awareness of harmonical relation, and still on popular styles, for example, they contribute a lot to explain why such music sounds more special sometimes. Then oftentimes they are dealing with borrowed chords from music that is more complex harmonically. So you have many examples of songs that are very influential, and they have always some harmonical situation that is actually borrowed from a symphony or an opera or something like that, and that's why we relate to that at the same time with understanding, appreciation, and with a higher appreciation, because we relate this to something higher and more fine and more made with more elaboration. Do you understand? And here in this third level of understanding, you also have, of course, first you understand the very simple and basic harmonical relations from tonica and dominante and chords on not inverted, with not so much strange tones. And what I would also like to point to is that sometimes you have also some quite interesting or the complicated chords in some arrangements of popular music, but the musical understanding will be guaranteed by rhythm or melody. It's very likely to be like that. And if the music is popular, if something that is really sold, okay. And so you have this third level of that is the harmony, and of course each one of these levels that I am talking about here, that are the musical parameters, you can also understand as something in itself, and then sometimes a whole style is really centered just on harmonical developments, and then you can have a situation where here the people who like this music, they understand also more wide harmonical relations and more complex and distant harmonical relations. They can relate that to the whole music. They can relate these chords to music from another style, etc. And that's another level of understanding. Do you understand? And you see that there is a lot to talk about here. That's a whole very interesting thing. I was thinking about that because also first it's really that is something that I genuinely thought about, and coincidentally there is a situation now. I heard about a call for papers also on this matter of musical understanding, and very probably I will systematize these thoughts and write about that. But anyway, I can give you here this insight that is very helpful for you as a composer or as a music lover, because it's in one way it's very simple, but in another way it's very it has a lot of potential, and actually people don't speak so much about that, or people seem to be not aware of this. That's the main thing. I don't care how original this thought is, but the fact is that the people don't care about this hierarchy and this classification. And of course, I still don't have any clear conclusion about that, more than that. If you are aware of this, you can bring more comprehensibility in your musical composition. You are, as a composer, you if you understand these levels, okay, it doesn't mean that you prioritize rhythm just because it's so elemental to be understood. Okay, it helps you as some compositional tool, so to say. It's awareness. And the other thing is that, let me see if I remember. Yes, it explains why the music is not something like a monoblock, a substance that you. Music is not something like. It's not a thing, okay, and that means you have many grades of musical beings, and they are they have a place and an order in our needs as human beings. So you cannot expect of the music that is centered on rhythm to be something like the music that is centered on more on harmony, okay. And also you cannot neglect the intrinsic qualities of rhythm and the intrinsic qualities of harmony. For example, they have different effects, and I think that each one of them has its place and its organical place, okay. That is here something that points to a kind of musical homeopathy, yeah, because you should understand the harmony and the proportion between the musical categories and the musical parameters. What is the task and the meaning of each one? You understand? What is the function of each one? So we talked about rhythm, melody, harmony, and now a more complex way to do music and to understand music is, of course, the polyphony, and that means of course counterpoint, yeah, when the melodies are brought together and they sound like independently and synchronized. And there is many kinds of way to consider that polyphony, because you can have also a polyphony between musical blocks, a counterpoint between musical blocks, between musical constellations of sounds, okay. But the most common situation is where you have the counterpoint of a three-part counterpoint with three melodies, something like Bach did, etc. And that's something that is really not so popular, and I think is because it's not so easy to understand. And that I mean nowadays, because of course you can have a cultural situation where the polyphony is the popular thing, and we had this in the Renaissance, okay. But even there, you can still find some patterns where the rhythm has a a preference, okay, the more you go on the popular level. So if you hear Pretorius or the more popular things, they go more to the rhythm. That's why the most fine way to compose music in the Renaissance was the motet and the secular counterpart the madrigal. Okay, absolutely polyphonic music, independent melodies together, and with very rich rhythmical variation, and the rhythm was not centered and not symmetric, and that means that the rhythm pointed to something more fine and more ethereal and more spiritual also. The condition to be understood in this case was the context in which the music was played, but that is another thing that here the theory get a little more complex, because if you are hearing this in the church, it doesn't mean that you understand absolutely the music as such, but you understand what is the function of this music, and that's why you can relate this complex music to something that you understand. So it's just required that the music sound pleasant, okay, that the sounds are pleasant. That doesn't mean that you actually understand what is happened there. And many people, I think, if you ask on the church when they are here, there they are actually, for example, they don't know what they are speaking on the text of such music, etc. So the actual level of understanding of the music in itself as music is another thing, and the context is most of the time helping you to have this illusion of musical understanding, what is also important. So you have the polyphony, and of course in the same way as the other parameters, you have the more simple or the more complex polyphony. Okay, and again, this difference between simple polyphony or complex polyphony, simple harmony or more complex harmony, melody, rhythm, etc., and also the difference between rhythm, melody, harmony, and polyphony, it's not related to the musical styles in such a way that it's impossible to do good music with more or less of that. Okay, so for example, you have I believe you can have a very good music with simple rhythm and simple melody. You can have a music that is still aesthetically rich. Okay, it's not rich on a music theoretical level, but it can be aesthetically rich. Sometimes, for example, even you can compose a very complex opera, but you can have a situation where suddenly it comes a song that is very simple, but the way that you put that, and if you put with the right text, you can make a huge impact with that. Okay, but in the same way you can have maybe music with extreme complex rhythm, extreme complex melody, harmony, polyphony, and also extreme long length. Okay, that requires a lot of maybe memory, and that is very rich music, and that's what I want to talk about here, about this awareness of the musical kaleidoscope that we have today at our disposition. And so we have polyphony, and then timbre. That means the quality in which you can hear polyphony, harmony, melody, and rhythm. That's which kind of color are you hearing that? In which kind of instrument or set of instruments? And the same thing. The interesting thing here is that people just understand today maybe drums, bass, guitar, or in fact that's already a conservative hippie view that I have. Actually, people understand today more this very simple combination between drums and a kind of electronic sound with bass, etc. Because also on the harmonic and melodical level, we live in a very poor world, I would say, and the fact is that people have a limited perception of time. They have most of the time an unaware perception of time. They can sometimes find a song cool or not if you have something more electronic like keyboards, etc. But most of the time they are not actually hearing this as an important thing. It comes like in a subconscious level, okay? And another level of understanding is where you begin to relate this set of instruments that are familiar to you to new sound combinations, and you begin to see that as the value of the music in itself, or a very important part of the value of the music that you are hearing. And at the end of this spectrum, for you understand what I want to say, is, for example, on the contemporary music of the see, for example, Olivier Messiaen, many times the combination of sound, it's in itself, it's absolutely the musical thing that he wants to express sometimes, if not the poetical idea. That's maybe the second important thing, and the harmony is just an excuse to show a new combination of instruments and of sounds, okay, of sounds on the perspective of what is this instrument that is playing here. Okay, so I talked at the same time about something that you may already know, but in another point of view, that's actually a new thing, because people don't have this awareness about how can we organize this musical world that we have, okay, and how can we organize it in such a way that we can appreciate and understand better what has been done, because it's pointless to do in some perspective, it's pointless to do new music or to do more music if you are not sure that the music is being digested in a comprehensible way, okay? I forgot here maybe two categories that are also important that I didn't mention, and text is another category that is of course very important, and I think the commonplace of the text is most of the time the love story, and I don't know, everything that you hear in popular songs, etc. They are the subject for long time. Also in more fine music, maybe Mozart, yeah, sometimes then you find the same patterns, and that's again a certain kind of text pattern and repetition of subjects, etc. Will determine also a style and an identity of people that is around this. Okay, and the thing is that there is many possible texts and subjects in music, and the question is that you should ask to yourself, how articulated is my capability to understand a more wide spectrum of texts and musical subjects. Okay, that's at the same time it's a question for you as a composer or for you as a music lover. And actually here that's just a video. I don't know really with whom I'm talking about, but I can imagine that if you are a music teacher or whatever, that this thought can bring some influence, so that the people that cannot understand music that is beyond what they are already hearing, that they got somehow influenced by this thought, and that that somehow can help for the awareness of how beautiful can be our musical appreciation, and how intense it can be, and how much wonderful music there is out there, while you are centered on the same thing, and that is a very determinant and decisive thing, for you can really say that you are someone who is eclectic, because if you are not aware of what is beyond what you always heard since you are a child, so you cannot call yourself eclectic. You hear just everything because everything comes, and actually you have no decision, you have no criteria for what you like or you don't like. You just think you have it. Okay, so there is also this important idea that there is two kind of eclectic. One eclectic person hears whatever, because this person doesn't want to be aware of what means good music to this person, because that implies a kind of psychological observation. Okay, and the second type is that someone who is eclectic because is on the search for a more extensive experience of the beauty, without giving up of the criteria of what this person finds beautiful. Okay, so that's the point to which my reflection here is coming. So I talked about rhythm, melody, harmony, polyphony, timbre, and I talked now a little bit about text, and the other thing that I forgot is the length. Okay, but that is very easy to understand, and of course people cannot understand music that is beyond 5 minutes. that's the reality. Most of the people cannot hear something that is 10 minutes long. Maybe if you are a classical composer and your friends are big like Beethoven, etc., that's not an issue, or if you like progressive rock, etc. But the reality in which we live, that people cannot hear more than 5 minutes music. I played already sometimes in the church 4 minutes, and it was already too long. So that's another pattern that is kind of evident. So that's the length of the music. So the result is that you have short music, music based on rhythm, okay, as the most elemental level of musical understanding. And the specific conclusion that I want to give to you here is that it is at the same time that is a criteria for judgment and for musical awareness, okay, but in another sense, it doesn't mean that you cannot have good music with a more narrow employment of the musical elements. But what I personally, my opinion is that you can tell when the music is simple and rich, just by knowing that the composer was aware of all the elements that he left away from this simple and basic employment of musical elements. Okay? So I think I talked already enough, and I come back to this idea, and I hope you have also your thoughts on this. You can share on the comments and book an online lesson with me also. Okay, so have a nice day. Ciao.